Thank you, Meenakshi. We are gathered here to inaugurate two events that are illustrative of our search for knowledge. Knowledge is power. Knowledge is light. Ajnana Timiram Dasya, Jnananjana Shalakaya, Chakshurun Militam Yena, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Let the light of knowledge illuminate us. We shall now invite our Honorable Chief Guest, Professor Pankaj Chandra, Chairman, Board of Management at Ahmedabad University, Professor Parag Patel, Director, HLIC, our Guru, and former Founder Director, Mr. M.T. Patel, and the students in charge of Spellbug 2016 and Intellectus 2016, Supriya Iyer, Disha Agarwal, and Bhagyashree Kulkarni to light the lamp. I would request Professor Devnath Tirupati and Professor Mrs. S.D. Trivedi, please join us. Thank you, everyone. It is a matter of great pride and privilege for us to have Professor Pankaj Chandra as the chief guest to grace the inauguration. I would request Professor Pradishta Pandya to extend a floral welcome to Pankaj Chandra. Thank you, ma'am. I would request Professor Vaibhav Kalia to present a token of gratitude and a memento to sir.
This is something always prepare for you. Thank you very much. Anmol? Where is Anmol? Anmol has got signed this for me. Thank you. Thank you very much. I wish I looked like this young.
We're delighted to have many of the dignitaries among us. I would like our student volunteer to please welcome Professor Beta Tirupati, Dean MSOM, and Professor Mrs. S.D. Trivedi, Director, BKMITS, with a bouquet.
Okay, everyone, thank you very much. You need to sign this. I don't value it or something.
Experience brings challenges. Challenges brings our resilience. Resilience is creativity. And therefore, one can say that experience builds character. In 3 years of college life, many of us get to experience new responsibilities, new challenges. It is time now to listen to two of my teammates who are students in charge of the event this year. I would like to call upon Bhagyashree Kulkarni, student in charge team, to speak a few words.
Albert Camus once said, "We continue to shape our personalities all our lives. If we knew ourselves, we would die." Intellectus is the event which intends to explore this multifaceted abilities and latent talents of the students. It focuses on reading, writing, speaking, improvising, and presentation skills of the students and provides them with a platform to exhibit the same. 2010, Intellectus is a two-day event where participants from across Gujarat gather together to show their talents in diverse yet interrelated fields. This cluster of contests include essay writing, personality contest, book review, group discussion, and extempore. Writing is the most effective tool to present our feelings in beautiful words. Essay writing and book review contests helps in bringing out this talent among participants. This year, the topic for essay was The Great Divided Nation Called India. Extempore and personality contest plans to test their contestants' assertiveness, presence of mind, analytical and communication skills, and their attitude while facing tough situations. Group discussion consists of a democratic process that can be equated to brainstorming where everyone respects others' view and at the same time prevails upon the others by the force and genuineness of his or her own argument. Overall, in this contest, students get the opportunity to exhibit the reading, writing, public speaking, and presentation skills. Our aim is to provide a platform to such students and nurture and recognize their skills. Participants compete for 19 individual events, including the rotating trophy for institute that they represent. Each year, the all-rounder who has excelled in all the 5 events takes home the rotating trophy for the institute. Being the in charge of this event has been a life-changing experience. It has made me realize and recognize the importance of being a part of something. It has taught me the meaning of friendship, respect, leadership, teamwork, and sensitivity. I hope the participants after this event have a similar experience where by the end of it, they take home something more than what they came with. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhagyashree. I would now like to invite Disha Agarwal, student in charge Spellbug 2015, to speak a few words.
OMG, BCZ, MSG, GN, SCTC, GSK, GM. Many of this we are all familiar with now. And sometimes I wonder if the new technologies will change language forever, like the way calculators once changed math. Every minute, the once huge expanse of language is contracting, shrinking. We are speaking in symbols and smileys again. It is a challenge indeed in this era of social media and instant messaging to avoid shortcuts. It is a challenge to find people passionate about a game of Scrabble. The student-led initiative of Spellbug, therefore, is an adventure in this new world that we have got accustomed to. Here we spell supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, even though the sound of it is something quite atrocious. We taste words, we feel their texture, we play words, we reach till their roots. Spellbug is a platform for people to learn, to enjoy the gift of language, to hone their vocabulary skills, to perfect their pronunciation. Extended over 3 rounds, one written and 2 oral rounds. Competition is a matter of half a day, but it is an intense zeal that participants bring as they spell and pronounce the words unknown and known. Specialists come to conduct the final rounds. Participants come from across the state and they have been coming in greater numbers since the inception from 5 years ago. This year, I got a chance to be the student in charge of this event with Supriya Iyer, which I value greatly. This experience has enriched me like words do to our language. I wish all the participants the very best. Thank you.
Thank you, Disha. I will now request our director, Professor Parag Patel, to address the participants and introduce our chief guest for the day.
A very good morning to all of you. Respected Shri Pankaj ji, Devnath ji, Trivedi ma'am, thank you for participants and the people who are accompanying participants, some of the faculty members of the colleges and the parents. I welcome you all on behalf of the entire organizing team. Of students. And some 35 students are after this event for last 3 months, and they've been able to pull up a lot of good things for you, which will happen over the next 2 days. They have worked hard on getting good judges to judge your performances. They have worked hard on arranging hospitality for you. They have worked hard on putting things together, making this entire couple of days interesting for you. Of intellectus and lies in a sheer priority, a very, very acute priority to constantly focus on all-round development while we achieve academic excellence in the background. So a need was felt that there are lots and lots of competitions, but there are very few competitions which actually push the participants to improve their reading, writing, speaking, critical thinking skills, spontaneity, the way they present themselves, the way they respect each other's views. So this lifelong competition is a result of that. I would say there are faculty mentors, but their role is like salt. It is less than 5%, but very critical in ensuring that everything happens for the preset objectives and they are achieved. 95% of the work is done by students and they have full freedom. While they arrange all this, organize all this, they also develop a lot of skills and learn things that are very intangible in nature. Okay, you can't measure them, but the one who becomes a part of the organization will go home with lots and lots of intangible skills. They actually end up applying things like planning, budgeting, opinion building, firefighting at times, convincing people. So all these things, all these skills are pushed. So that's the biggest advantage for the people who are working for this event. For the participants, it is very sure that you will go home with a raised bar, because these 37 or 38 participants are the best foot forward of their respective colleges, because every college just sends one student and that student's got to be an all-rounder. So I can say that this is a wonderful representation of the undergraduate crowd of Gujarat state, because all the leading colleges have sent one entry each, and all these students are very promising and they are actually the best foot forward of that college, as I mentioned. when the students come forward and participate in such events, it shows optimism on their part. You know, they are ready to compete, they are ready to learn, they are ready to work harder than others. So I really appreciate your coming forward and taking part in this competition and making it a large event. Now I will take the privilege of introducing our chief guest. I've got a paper, one page, as you know, I can speak for 1 hour on what sir has done in his life till now, but we have compressed it to a page. And because it is tough to remember everything, I have brought this page so that I am factually 100% correct. Sir was until recently the director of the iconic Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore. It is IIM Bangalore, as we know, and professor of operations and technology management at IIMB. Tech from Banaras Hindu University and a PhD from Wharton School, University of Pennsylvania. He has taught at various institutions such as McGill University in Montreal, University of Geneva, the Wharton School, International University of Japan, Cornell University, Renmin University in Beijing, and IIM Ahmedabad. He has worked briefly with the World Bank in Washington. He was the chairperson of the doctoral program at IIM Ahmedabad and the first associate dean of another institution of repute, which is the International School of Business at Hyderabad. He was a part of the founding team of the very popular and the outfit that has made a large impact, which we know as CIIE at IIM, which is the Center for Incubation and Entrepreneurship. Professor Chandra has also served as the member of the Government of India Committee on Clusters for Development of Informal Sector. He was a member of 2 high-powered committees, the Government of India Committee on Rejuvenation of Higher Education, which was popularly known as Yashpal Committee, that relooked into the Indian higher education system, as well as the Committee on the Autonomy of Central Institutions. He was a member of 2 steering committees constituted by the Planning Commission of India for the 12th Plan Development, one on the higher technical education and the other on industry. He was a member of the Central Advisory Board of Education, that's a subcommittee on teacher education. Until recently, he was also a member of the TRAI, which is Telecom Regulatory Authority of India. He was a member of RUSA, which is the higher education regulator as a part of the Ministry of HRD, Government of India. Professor Chandra's research and teaching interests include manufacturing management, supply chain coordination, building technological capabilities, higher education policy, and high-tech entrepreneurship. He has published extensively in international referee journals and has served on the editorial boards of several international journals. He has written a book titled Technology Practices and Competitiveness, the Primary Textile Industry in Canada, China, and India, and has recently completed the manuscript for another book that studies issues of governance, change and institution building in Indian public universities. He has been conducting an interesting national survey on competitiveness of Indian manufacturing since last 20 years. Professor Chandra has also been involved in startups, has been a consultant to large Indian and multinational firms, and serves on boards of reputed Indian firms and institutions. Now, this is in the public domain. I would like to tell you 2 more things before I welcome him to the podium. We are fortunate that Sir was involved with Ahmedabad University since its inception as a member of the Board of Governors, which many of us don't know. And the second thing is that Sir had declined an offer for the top job at UGC. So Sir was offered the chairmanship of the University Grants Commission, which overlooks 740 universities in India, comprising of 40,000 plus colleges. So, sir, we are extremely fortunate that you have chosen to contribute to the growth and development of a nascent university which we belong to. Uh, Thank you very much for being here. And without wasting a single second, I would now invite you on stage.
Thank you very much, Parag. You know, you've said too many good things. Now I have to try to live up to your expectations. I don't know if I would be able to, but first and foremost, you know, every time I come to BKM IBA or HLIC, I'm so delighted by the energy of the students and the faculty. You know, I mean, this is credit to all the principals, the heads, and the teachers, the past and the present, who are here because it's graduate schools where actually most of the time we've spent our own lives are easy places. I think you are really doing something fabulous with young people. And I'm when I was listening to Sukanya, when I was listening to Disha and Bhagishri and there was one more, Meenakshi singing. You know, it really tells us that both our university and our country are in very, very good hands. Both in terms of your skills, your abilities, your presence. You know, I think others in the country should come and watch you, and they'll be delighted to see where India is going. I was in the morning thinking, what is it that I should speak to you? And it's not always easy for people like us who are very removed many a times to speak directly about lives, about careers, about aspirations. So I thought what I'll do is talk about people and tell you 3 or 4 stories about people. And this, my 5 to 10 minutes of talk is for students. So faculty can close their ears a little bit. and it's about people. And 3, 4 friends of mine who live very differently and who've lived their careers in very interesting manners and subsequently have had the courage to stand up and do something worthwhile. So let me, before anything else, start with some failures, and I'll talk about myself a little bit. You know, the 2 things that I mean, that always come to mind. By the way, everything that Parag talked and said in a few minutes ago were all unplanned events. By the way, there's one small error. I was not offered the UGC. I mean, it was offered, but the Prime Minister declined. So that's the factual part of it. But the interesting part is, which I want to put before you and tell you a story, is I did fairly well academically, but I was the only person, when I've told to a couple of friends from the student community when they came to see me, was the only person in my batch, and I ranked number 1, but only person in my batch who didn't get a campus job. Right? And people said, well, you have an attitude. Maybe you showed an attitude in, and I was, by the way, the university debater. I was everything that you're preparing for. And people said you showed an attitude where your interviewer must have felt that you're not going to come. So my point number 1 actually, and I'm actually a little bit jumping, that life is about attitude. Okay, and there's no correct attitude or wrong attitude, but you have to live with your attitude, and you have to live with its ups and downs. And many things that Parag talked about just happened. You don't plan for them at all. One thing leads to another, and I'll talk a little bit more about careers of some friends, and you will see how what you're doing today is so crucial for building a perspective in in life. So the question is, I mean, I was just, when driving, I was thinking, so what's a key question that many of us academics think about you as students when you come into institutions like ours? And the first thing that we always think is, well, how can we prepare our young students for life's work? It's not for your next job, it's not for your next class, it's not for the next year, but what is it that we should do? I mean, this is constantly running in all your teachers' minds. Those who come to teach you subjects, those who are sitting in administrative offices, that how to prepare you for life's work. I mean, it's as complex and as difficult anyways to define what is life's work. We don't know what's life's work. I don't know myself what is my life's work. But, and at the age at which you are, even looking 30 years, can you predict? Answers perhaps no. We don't know what is our life's work. But we know two things. And two things are interrelated. And they keep changing in some ways over a period of time, and both affect each other. One is courage, and second is purpose. Now, I don't know which one leads to which. I don't know whether courage leads to purpose or whether purpose leads to courage. You'll discover this in your own life, and each experience tells you that they're surely interacting with one another. And I'll tell you a story about this. You know, we have a very good friend at IIM Ahmedabad. Some of you may have heard of him, Anil Gupta. Anil has a very interesting tagline at the end of his email. I don't know if he still has it or he's changed it, but it says, courage is when you say no and the world wants you to say yes. And you can read it the other way around also. Courage is when you say yes and the world wants you to say no. Now, it's whoever said that is a very poignant, strong line. And I'll give you an example of how each one of us, and you will face that too, by the way. I mean, your purpose has changed. Sometime when you're in college or you're in class 12, your purpose is to get into the next best institution which allows you to do what you want to do. When you go to work, you are, that purpose changes, and from there, when you become a father, a mother, and your purpose changes, and so the purposes keep changing, and they keep feeding into this courage. And I'll give you one very interesting episode. Professor Tirupati, who's here, and he's probably one of the best academics that I've come across in my life. You know, I mean, in terms of the clarity and the rigor of his thinking. And we've been involved for quite some time, and he was part of this incident that I'm going to tell you. So about 6 years ago, we were at IIM, and 6 years ago, we decided to go online with CAT. I don't know, the students wouldn't remember, but some of the faculty might. And And it was a very bold decision. This is the time, the CAT is held over 270 centers in the country. About 2 lakh students take an exam at the same time. And there's an army of about 700, 800 people who would go around the country. And we've traveled with suitcases carrying exams and exam papers all over the country. And it's a very terrifying responsibility and a job that you are going in a train station and sitting there with an exam question for CAT. And that's how we used to do. And CAT, the numbers were growing. And we decided that we should actually go online. Nobody had done that scale of online examination anywhere in the world. And we said, okay, so we floated a tender. We went through a whole lot of processes internally with the government and everyone else, telling them that, you know, we will do this, convince large stakeholders from Prime Minister down to everybody that this is essential for the country, because nobody wants to touch CAT. I mean, it's so sacred an examination, if you may, and also very, very critical. And we got the best vendor. And guess who was the vendor? The vendor was the guys who do SAT and GRE. Right? These are guys who've done online globally in smaller numbers, but all over the world. Most reputed organization. Then they got the most reputed Indian organization at that time, which was involved in testing an IIT, to be partners in hardware, and we rolled out everything. Now, on the day of the examination, it's about 7:30, and we were all at very different kind of centers trying to see. And first exam was being done, and it was to be done over a period of time, over 32 exams in a day. There were biometric testing, the cameras, and all kinds of things there. And I walked into PS College in Bangalore, because we're just going by, and it's about 7. The exam was to begin at 9, and here is a principal who comes by, asks me, "Who are you?" And by the way, I was the faculty, from the faculty side, director side, the chair of that entire CAT, administration. And then there was a faculty chair. So I said, "I'm so and so, I've come here." So he said, he took me aside and he said, something is amiss, because till 6:30 in the morning today, they were setting up the lab where exams were going to be held. And I woke up at 5 and I walked around, and he says, when I saw this place was not done, I went in and I found that it was very inadequate. And so I've now set it aside, but just to let you know. Now it rang a little bit of a bell in my mind, but I said, fine, this may be one center, but all right, you always want to be hopeful in life. And you had never thought of what would happen. And you said, okay, the problem has been solved, so let's move on. And within the exam started 9 a.m. and I'm going from there into another college, and I get a phone call from my wife who says, "Did you see the ticker running on TV?" So I said, "No, I'm in car, I haven't seen it." And she says, there's a NDTV is saying that CAT exam has crashed. The servers have crashed. And within 30 seconds, I get a phone call from the minister, Kapil Sibal, asking me, has the exam, something has happened to the exam? I said, I don't know, but I'm just going to run and find out what's the state. And truly, the servers had crashed. First attempt in the morning, 270 odd centers in the country, and the exam had bombed. It had failed. completely. I mean, if there was something like national crisis, it was this one. And you can imagine, I was in the middle of the crisis. Perhaps a cause of it, according to many. But we had failed, completely failed. And now, and we didn't have a backup plan. We had not thought about what would we do if the servers failed. So now we're all in a huddle, running around, trying to figure out. And of course, the story is everybody is now taking pot shots at you. Okay, this is, I mean, I saw for the first time what we feel sympathetic now when there's a national disaster and what people who are managing it must be facing. Because everybody from media to politicians to your own, by the way, own colleagues, the biggest critics were own colleagues. So my own faculty colleague called me in and said, you should step down from this CAT role. And you should give it to all the chairpersons of a former CAT exam administration. So I got saved when they made that statement, because all the people who were managing it were former CAT chairpersons. So I said, listen, I didn't do anything, it's these guys, and these are the experts. But I mean, the entire whole night we were on, Professor Tirupati, myself, and 4-5 other colleagues all over the world, with the chairman of GRE Corporation, ETS, in the US. And after half an hour of everybody shouting and letting steam, because that's the first thing you know what to do, is you just shout, right? You don't know fully what you should do. Then we realized that we have a problem to solve. The shouting is not going to help. And at that juncture, I'm getting phone calls. You wouldn't believe, every 5 minutes. So Indian Express says, we are going to write a story tomorrow, I want to do an interview. But Hadrat calls and says, I want tomorrow for you to come and onto this panel of 10 people shouting match. And I refused. I said, you want to do a one-on-one interview? And this is all happening 3 a.m. in the morning, If you want to do a one-on-one interview for me to tell you, there's a parent who called me and says, you've destroyed my son. He went to give an exam and his thing crashed, and you're not giving an opportunity. Now, all of that was happening. And here we have to make a decision very quickly what to do next. That was more important to us than what had happened. And we are telling NIIT and we are telling ETS that you put routers and new machines and fly them from US. And they really flew almost 200 pieces of equipment overnight to install at various centers in the country. And at about 2:30 or 3, our discussion was, should we scrap CAT? And the question was, and the minister kept, their office kept saying, you have to scrap CAT. Faculty colleagues kept saying, you have to scrap CAT. Media and the biggest, by the way, vocal people were coaching centers, because we've actually taken the food away from coaching centers. Because suddenly they had to be very asset heavy. I mean, the cheating that these guys have been doing, fooling students in the name of coaching, suddenly it was all gone because the questions are out in the open. We were ready to give everybody, you take and do these exams. So, and everybody was saying, and at 3 a.m. we took a call. And it was, in my mind, one of the most courageous calls that that group took that day. That no, actually the purpose is more important. The purpose is to change and modernize the way we do testing. And we realized that if we scrap CAT, the online part at that moment, for 10 years, there would be no online exam in the country, because everybody would give this as an example and say, no more. And we said, we have to fix it. Well, there's some mistakes that have happened. There may have been oversight, there may have been bad technology, and it turned out actually there was bad intent. There were lots of cases because we had cameras in the rooms of students coming and pressing the button, turning the machine off and saying, well, you know, my machine has crashed. There are lots and lots of stories of that kind, and we took a decision just simply to safeguard the purpose. And in my mind, that was the most courageous decision that that group took. And today, I think it is a landmark, complete landmark event. And it takes enormous courage. So what you are actually doing here as part of these activities is really to understand what is purpose and how to build courage. If you have courage, I think decisions will, by the way, we all make wrong decisions. You will make wrong decisions. All of us sitting in this room have made many, many wrong decisions. For every 10 decisions you make, you'll make another 10 which are wrong, which don't pan out the way you want them to pan out. Because that's what decisions in life are all about. These are uncertain events in life, the uncertainty around information. You take the best information available to you and apply your mind. But courage stays with you. Purpose stays with you. And all these events that you are participating in, and I'm told you're some of the brightest and best from your colleges who've come here, and I'm so delighted because you are the future of the state, of this country, and if you have that courage in a sense of purpose, there's no stopping. That's what education provides you. Education actually allows you to do three things very, very quickly. One, it allows and opens a door to give you a passion for your pursuit, whatever that is. Okay. And I'll talk a little bit about each one of them. And second is to understand that life is truly about coincidences. How much at this age you might be thinking that, you know, tomorrow I'll do this, and then 2 years down the road I'm going to do this, and then 5 years I'll do something else, and then I'll make so much of money, and then I'll get into that position, and then I'll close out the door, everything, come back and do something else. It doesn't happen that way. All of that you want will happen, but it does, just the pathway varies, path changes over periods of time. Whatever you want to happen in your life will happen. So that's one part of this passion for pursuit is, if you want something to happen, and if you stay with that idea for a long enough period of time, it will happen. You will make it happen, others will make it happen for you, but it will happen. And I'll give you an example of a very good friend of mine who's going to come here and speak on the campus sometimes in February, is a very good novelist today called Kunal Basu. His new book has just come out called Calcutta. But his life story is very interesting. A young boy was born in the home of parents, both of whom were writers, Bengali writers. Both were members of the Communist Party of India. He was an engineer. He became an engineer at Jadavpur, became the president of the Student Union, supported by Student Federation of India, the left group. Then goes to US to do engineering and goes and does marketing. How much more worse can it be for a student president who is supported by SFI to do consumer behavior and marketing, right? But that's life. That's the passion. And he's writing, by the way. He wants to be a writer, but he's not able to find an opportunity to write, or has to follow very different pathways. And he finds that. And then he goes to McGill, where I actually met him 25 years ago as a fellow academic. And he continues to write, but nobody wants to publish him. He's also very diffident about what he's writing. And at some point of time, leaves Montreal, thinks that he has to be in London, goes to Oxford, starts teaching, but he's still writing. And he takes, by the way, he had a tenured position at McGill. He takes an untenured position at Oxford. He takes a non-tenured route because he thinks he wants to write. And then he writes his first novel, which is Opium Clerk, about opium trade from India to China. How we Indians ruined China, actually, at that point of time. Well, it was British who was making it. So, and today he has, I think, 7 or 8 novelists. And one of his films, one of his short stories, The Japanese Wife, was made into a film by Aparna Sen. Now, really an example of passion for pursuit. And the pursuit is something that you want to do, but it takes you a long time. It won't happen for some it happens tomorrow. For most of us, it takes long to do what you want to do. And you have to stay with that idea. Important thing is stay with that passion, stay with that idea. 5 years, 10 years, and it's bound to happen. Second part is life is also about coincidences. You know, it doesn't, everything doesn't just fall as you have happened and you've done. And it also is, you have to force opportunities. So here I'll tell you something I must happened to me. So I finished my BTech. I didn't get a job. I wanted to do OR, and I didn't get. I had a good GRE, very good GRE scores, good scores, everything, but didn't get. So I get a fellowship to go to University of Alaska, and I'd applied to Wharton for PhD. I didn't hear back from them. And of course, I'm a BTech. BTech, by the way, are more useless than BCom, BBA, I'm telling you. we think we know mathematics, but we don't know any mathematics. And so don't get marred by those guys across the road from here. BTechs are useless, completely. I'm sorry, Anil. No, that's why you are here, to make them better. That's why you are here, So, thank you. So, he's not a BTech, So, I said, okay, who's going to give me an entry into PhD? I'm foolish. I'm asking for straight skipping a master's going into PhD. Who's going to give it? So I go to Alaska. Now, I had a few other options, and I go to Alaska simply because of all the people whom I've met, nobody's been to Alaska. Truly, that's my reason for going to Alaska. And I said, this is unusual. And when plane is landing, and I said, my God, where have I come now? Middle of wilderness. And you go there, and it was fabulous. I mean, it was probably the best 1 year that I've had. I didn't have to study much because that place was useless academically. I mean, I had done most of the stuff that they were teaching at undergrad level, so this was piece of cake. And somewhere 6 months or 5 months down the road, I'm so bored with the university environment that I said, well, what should I do? What should I do next? I can't be here. I mean, this one can't last too long. 6 months, 8 months is all right, but I have to, after this, find something worthwhile to do. So, and I, by the way, saw Northern Lights, the most beautiful part that anybody could do. It's just absolutely amazing how somebody's as if waving satin colored sky. So it was great for me. And then one day I said, this is about life and coincidences and forcing opportunities. So I said, maybe I should call these Wharton guys and tell them that I'm here at Alaska and maybe they'll give me admission or something. They haven't sent me any letter. So I very hesitatingly, because I didn't know, I mean, in my mind, they had rejected me because I didn't get any letter of admission. If I call them, they'll shout at me, कि admission बेकार हो, admission नहीं दिया, बाद में phone नहीं कर रहे हो. So anyway, I mustered a lot of courage and I called these guys. I called the admissions chair of the department and said, hey, listen, I'm so and so, and you know, I'm here and I've done pretty well, knowing fully well this is a useless program. I've done pretty well here and it's tough, and all the stories that you all tell, you know, I also told. A tough program and I've worked hard, you know. And so he says, okay, call me tomorrow. Call them tomorrow. And then he says, you know what, and this is about coincidences, and this is about forcing. He says, but we admitted you. You never showed up. And I was really biggest surprise of my life. I was just taken aback. And as it turns out, that they had sent me a letter. The letter reached in October, and I had already left in August. And the letter then my parents forwarded. At that time, there was no phone, wasn't there. Alaska, you couldn't do a direct call. Phone, you couldn't call. They forwarded it, which came to me in January. And I'm calling somewhere around November, December, or thereabout. So now you can imagine a state of somebody who's been given admission, and now, I mean, in my mind, it is a lost cause, right? So very sheepishly, I asked him, so can I come now? So he says, yes, of course. You want to start next year? I said, yes. So, and it happened, and I went, and it was truly a very life-changing kind of an option. And I know if I had not called, taken the courage to call, I wouldn't have worked. If I was on board with the program, if the program was half challenging, I may have taken it as it is and moved on in life and done something else. So life, you have to pry open the door. The door won't open for you. For many, for some, the door opens. But you have to keep pushing, keep pushing. You can't say no for an answer. You have to keep trying. So that is point number 2. The last point is, you know, how do you put your best foot forward? And this is what education does. It's preparing you for life. And once again, I want to narrate another story of a friend. So this guy is a classmate of mine doing chemical engineering. Wants to desperately go to US, as most engineers at that time wanted to do. Today, nobody wants to do it. You know, I mean, the opportunities in Asia and India are so immense. Who wants to go to US? And so he finds a program in material science at University of Minnesota, where nobody applied, nobody had heard of material science at that point of time in India. So he applies and he gets in, he gets a fellowship. And middle rung performance in class, not really at all, but very bright guy. He goes there and then he says, this is not what I want to do. Does masters in material science, and then prepares and goes to do public. He says, I want to do public policy. And goes to Woodrow Wilson School at Princeton, does public policy. And then I.G. Patel, who used to be the governor of the Reserve Bank and chairman at Ahmedabad Board of Governors, and very well known to many people here and in Ahmedabad, was giving a talk, and he was at World Bank at that time, visiting for the year, and they wanted to write a history of World Bank. So this gentleman says, oh, I'd love to be part of the team, becomes part of the history writing team for World Bank. Once he finishes that, and by the way, he's not published anything from his PhD yet. And said it was a very good piece of work, but each of these steps is preparing him for the next. And he applies for a faculty position in Department of Political Science at Harvard, gets there and stays for 10 years and then leaves, and he's now running one of the most successful centers for South Asian studies and study of India at University of Pennsylvania as a chair professor. And his name is Devesh Kapoor, a very, very old friend who again spent a year in Ahmedabad and over the year will come and but life is like that. It's never straight. You just keep walking around. And all, once again, I want to say is all these things that you're doing here today are going to add up in a very subconscious manner to prepare you for this life ahead of you. And I'm quite confident that you'll create a unique path for yourself. There are no two paths which are similar. You and the person sitting next to you will have very different pathways in life. And you have to create that pathway. And if you are full of life, you prepare yourself, do well what you're doing now, jump to the next one in a very exciting manner. And the next step, howsoever suboptimal it is, it's never a door which is closed. It's just maybe a temporary station for you, from where you can move to another step, and then come back to do what your life's passion and work is. So best wishes to all of you, and I'm sure you'll all make all of us very proud. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for the inspiring tales of courage and purpose and coincidence, which impact our decisions in life. And we enjoy listening and learning as you spoke. So we have amongst us Professor Hlic, the Dean, Institute of Engineering and Technology. I would request the student volunteer to present him a floral welcome. I will now call upon Supriya Iyer, student in charge, Spellbug 2016, to present the vote of thanks. Honorable Chief Guest Pankaj Chandra Sir, respected Professor Parag Patel, invited dignitaries, my teachers, friends, and fellow travelers in this journey. As someone has rightly said, no duty is more urgent than that of returning thanks. And it becomes an honor and a privilege when someone has to do it on behalf of one's institute. I begin with the person who has made this function very special, not only with his very presence, but also with his inspiring words, Professor Pankaj Chandra. It is indeed very kind of you, sir, to agree to be with us here on this occasion. Thank you. Whether it is the eve of Culfest or the morning of IMG, his faculty presence is always a blessing on behalf of HLIC. And I would like to extend my sincere thanks to Professor M.T. Patel, sir, who has been the guiding force behind these events in Intellectus and Spellbug, which has now seen newer heights. I'm grateful to the faculty members of HLIC for devoting their time. I would also like to thank the flock of volunteers, the entire team of Intellectus and Spellbug for their toil and the time that they have given us, and for their efforts that they are putting to make this event a huge success. Finally, we at HLIC know that all this may not have been possible without the unending support of other ancillary staff and the entire administrative team of HLIC. Finally, I thank you all for being here. Before we conclude the ceremony, we would like to capture a few memories that we can cherish. So I would request all the dignitaries. I would request all the dignitaries to stay back for a photograph.
लाइव स्ट्रीमिंग बंद कर दो।
I would request the participants and the team of Intellectus and Spellbug to gather for a group photograph. Yeah, all the participants. I request the participants of Intellectus and Spellbug to gather here for a photograph.